So we have already talked through 3 of the 4 critical questions you should ask when starting a web project already. We talked about what is this website for? We talked about who is this website for, about audience, and maybe a little out of order, we talked about why. Why should you be doing this at all? Today, we're going to go and talk about how. And how is about process, it's about staffing, it's about communication, it's about getting ahead of all of the things that after you've done a few websites or a few hundred, you get to the point where you realize, these are the things that hang us up every time to some degree. So getting your how straight is about, and I'm going to talk through all of these things in turn, and Jack, you're going to ask me questions as we go along, but having a solid plan for doing the work. It's about being aware and getting ahead of those sneaky time killers and rough spots. It's about how thinking content always can help tie a project together. It's about cultivating great client communication, giving and receiving feedback, and working with flexibility. And so the first one is really just about planning and encouraging cross-team collaboration. And I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to share my screen and show a Gantt chart, which is a way that we at Edgar Allan put our projects together. And I want to show just the level of detail, I'm getting there, I'm just pulling it up, that we tend to plan our projects. So a Gantt chart is this thing. And you can see this is a project that we're actually in process on. We started on the 26th of June, and it kind of goes and goes and goes and goes. And it looks like we're going to wrap this one on the 3rd of November. You can see all the different work streams down the left side of the page here, from the SEO to the site outline, to the wireframes, to the design directions, all the way down into development. And then there's this is in ClickUp, so it's our project management software. So it's also tied to our timesheets and kind of where everybody is staffed and how many hours they're spending on things. So you also see a very long oversight bucket here, which is for the project manager or for the engagement lead. But you can see we work in a way that we actually call waggle, which is waterfall for the first parts of the project, which is, okay, so we're going to do some SEO recommendations, and we can't do anything else until we get those in. So we're going to start on the site outline at that point. And then after that's finished, we'll work on the wireframes, and there'll be 2 batches of wireframes. And it kind of goes like, as you can see, sort of in a waterfall fashion. As we get to this part of the project where we're in development and design, we start to do sprints, which is what Agile is. You do a certain amount of work, and then you review it, and then you do another certain amount of work. It's just like a 1 or 2 or 3 week churn of stuff that you do from start to finish, and then you move on to the next thing. So that is what we are doing here, where you can see all this stuff that's starting to overlap: design, production, development, test planning, and then down into QA and UAT, which is user acceptance testing, and then more development. So this is the level of detail to which we are planning things, and we do that because it gives us a baseline. And I will use this quote that Mason likes to use a lot, which is, we like to make a really great plan, but no plan survives first contact. Meaning, this is the best that we're going to do. This is what we're going to try to shoot for. But we know that some of these things are going to move around because there's going to be more rounds of revision. Some of these things are going to not happen in this order. But this also helps our clients understand how much time we're going to be spending on something, when they can expect things, how we can set meetings so they can make them. And also, these are all tied to, if I clicked into them, it would show you that they're tied to hours spent that we've allocated to each one of these tasks. So it's also a great way for us to very granularly scope a project, where a lot of times, or at least sometimes, I've seen other shops or other people just scope it like a big bucket of stuff. We're just going to get something done. There's going to be a start date and there's going to be an end date, and then there's a bunch of hours in there. We're trying to be a lot more transparent and say, look, this is what you're getting, and there's no hidden fees or hidden work streams, and we're going to be flexible with you too. So that is about planning. Another part of kind of planning is staffing the right people for the right job. So it's sort of a luxury of being a larger shop where we have options. But maybe you hire freelancers and you're trying to find the right person, or you every time that you have a thing to do that isn't in your wheelhouse, you find a partner to work with. So we are asking ourselves, who's going to work on this project? Well, let's look back at the what and why of the website. What are we making? Are we making a commerce site? Are we making a sales site? Are we making an informative site? Are we making something else? And so we might choose to need a really senior brand person and a more junior UX person because it's more about brand and design. We might need a really sophisticated developer on this project, somebody that can really do some cool stuff because it has a lot of interactions and a lot of animations or a lot of complexity. And we might not need that much firepower on the content end of things, for example. So then we're making those decisions as well to try to get ahead of the problems that might arise. So the way that we are able to do, I think, large-scale brand to build projects. We are a brand to Webflow build agency, so we have a lot of different skill sets on staff. We have strategists, we have writers and content designers. Sometimes they are one and the same. We have UX folks, user experience folks. We have UI folks who are user interface folks, more on the design side of things. We also tend to have people who are design production. After the design direction is set down and approved by the client, another person who is maybe a little less far along in their career, or somebody who's just kind of coming up and learning, they're going to be applying those designs to wireframes, as opposed to a more senior designer might be creating the actual design direction. We also have developers of different varieties. Everyone on staff at Edgar Allan who is a developer is a Webflow developer, but we also have people with specific specialties, people that do different varieties of code. We also have an AI coding tool called Slater that makes making coded websites and doing cool things on Webflow websites a lot easier, and we use that as well. And then we also have project managers. Each project is assigned a person to keep track of the timing and the budget and the staffing and the more ticky client communications, just keeping things on track. But we also have on each project, or on say most projects, especially larger ones, someone who's called an engagement lead, whereas a project manager is responsible for the health of the project from a timing and budget standpoint. The engagement lead is responsible for the creative health of a project. Is the work good? So that person is usually a more senior team member. It's somebody who, and it doesn't have to be any specific discipline. I am a engagement lead and I am not a designer, but I take the role of creative director in that sense, and I give feedback on designs. I sometimes get help from my design counterparts to make that clear or to make sure that I'm not missing something. And they will do the same on the strategy side of things. Or if you're a UX person, you're an engagement lead, you're asking for various other different pieces of advice. So that's how we do that. You do not have to have a staff of 10 to do that, though. You may just not be moving as quickly as we are. We can move fairly quickly because we have a different person in each one of those roles, and they can, slot themselves in along that very large Gantt chart and spend half of their week or their whole week or a certain percentage of their week on a certain task over a short period of time. If you are a freelancer or you own a very small shop, and we used to be a very small shop, you just become really good at being kind of a switch hitter, I guess, or a jack of all trades. You get the ability to, and I think that those of us that have been around at Edgar for a long time, a lot of us are good at multitasking in that way, because some of it, you can run your own project and also be the creative director and also be the writer. And then maybe you have a design counterpart and a developer that's helping you with that. If you're a developer, maybe you take on some design skills and you can work on that part of the project as well. And you're great at client communication. And then maybe you have somebody helping you with writing. It's not, we have a sort of we're structured that way now because we're bigger, and we also sort of have the luxury of having a person that is pretty much responsible for one thing, but it always is really useful to have acumen in more than one task.